Hello everyone, I'm Josh from Zoek, the fastest growing global job board. Joining me today in another How You Made It video is Guy Williams, the CEO of U-POL. U-POL is a world leader in automotive refinishing products with sales in over 100 markets and employing over 300 people. In this interview, I'm going to be quizzing Guy on his experience in the manufacturing industry as well as his rise through the ranks into senior management. He'll be offering his thoughts and personal experiences to help in your job search. Guy, as an international business leader with a strong understanding of consumers, you've achieved significant profitable growth, cash flow and market share in your previous £1.2 million multi-channel business. Thank you for sharing your time with us today. Please tell us a bit about yourself and how your career journey started.
Well, first of all, Josh, thanks for asking me. And I appreciate you taking the time to interview me. So thank you. Look, my career it started. I started stacking shelves in an Asda supermarket in North Wales, and that is something I've never forgot. And sort of just progressed through the ranks of Asda, then Aldi. They were relatively new in the UK. I've done a number of different roles, running food halls, individual Aldi supermarkets, area manager, supply chain. And then I left Aldi, went to Woolworths, which is a very different type of business. I ran a big region for Woolworths. And then I joined ICI. And I kind of expected to stay for a couple of years, but stayed for about 12 or 13 years. First of all, running their stores business. That's how I kind of got into a manufacturing business. And then just progressed and ended up MD of the UK and Ireland business. And then my role just grew to the role you just described, kind of 1.2 billion across most of Europe. When I finished that, I took a little bit of time off because I hadn't really stopped working since I was about 18. And I joined the current company, U-POL, which is a brilliant little business, backed by private equity. So very different than the role I'd done before. About 50 million turnover. We're on our way to making it a 100 million turnover business. Yeah, and it's just been great fun all the way along. But it's not your normal career progression by any stretch of the imagination.
You have a real wealth of experience in a variety of different industries. How did you find moving from one to the other?
I think actually, I would say the biggest learning curve for me was going from Aldi to Woolworths, because one was a very young, dynamic organisation in the UK at the time. You know, I think they had 25 stores when I joined, and you can all see where they are now. Whereas Woolworths was a much older business, much more stuck in its ways. Actually had brilliant people and brilliant product. It kind of just lost its way at a point in time. That was the biggest and hardest transition for me, was going from a family-owned, very agile business to a very corporate environment. Moving from Woolworths into ICI, yeah, technically it was very different. I'd never worked in a manufacturing business before. But once I got my head around it, and I've stayed in manufacturing, and I don't really intend to leave it. There's something I genuinely like about manufacturing businesses and the B2B side of those businesses.
What attracted you to working in the automotive and manufacturing industry?
Well, I love cars, so that's part of it. I think if you really look at my career, I had a very planned career when I was in retail. I ended up in a manufacturing business almost by accident because I ended up running a merchant business within the Dulux business. And then as I got into that world, it kind of just got under my skin, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I think what you've seen in manufacturing businesses, which I've really enjoyed over the last 10, 15 years, is there are some big challenges. So there's some big challenges about productivity, how you make things more efficient, how you innovate. So I find manufacturing businesses are quite complex, and I quite like the challenge of that complexity and then getting the teams together. That's what I really enjoy, is getting teams of people together to solve those problems.
With such a strong global presence and a great range of products, where does U-POL go next?
More and more, we're a global business. So we traded in a lot of countries historically, but we didn't have a big footprint. But we've taken our North America business from like $10 million turnover. I think next year we'll do about $50 million. And we've got an awful lot of headroom and new stuff coming down the track in America. So I think that's a big growth engine for us. Germany's a big growth engine for us, and we've got plenty to go at. So yeah, it's pretty exciting, and I think North America is where our focus will be though going forward.
What would you say has been your biggest challenge throughout, and how did you overcome it?
I think I've had a number of challenges. I ran a business through the recession. I ran the Dulux business through a recession, and that was hard. I think that was the first time that I had to face into kind of restructuring, and I was relatively young at the time. I was in my late 30s, and I found that difficult. I found it difficult making people redundant and restructuring an organisation. I think I overcame it because I just did what I always do, which is I didn't get there were other people running the process, but I made sure I was always available to people. I talked to people and I reassured people, and I tried to get them through it, which is a little bit like what we've done with COVID now.
Have you experienced any failures along your road to success?
Loads and loads and loads. I think if you haven't, you're doing something wrong. I think there are things you can control and there are things you can't control. So you get failures because Brexit comes along or COVID. You've kind of just got to roll with them and go, look, it's not in my control. I'll do the best I can. There are equally things that you get wrong. And I've got loads of things wrong. And I think what you have to do is just say, whether that's you've employed the wrong person, you've put the wrong person in the wrong job, you've miscalculated something, commercially, you've had a problem in a factory. The learning for me is just act on it quickly. You know it's wrong. Don't try and hide it. Just act on it quickly and sort it out as best you can.
What would you say is the biggest investment that you've made?
I ran a business called the Dulux Decorator Centres, and it wasn't doing very well when I went into the role. It was a paint merchant business. I invested a lot of time with the team that were already there but kind of forgotten about in the big ICI structure. We had about 90 stores, and I spent a lot of time with the store managers, a lot of time in the business, and we reinvented that business. And it was just a brilliant feeling. So there were people that you saw actually reinvigorated. The business really, really stood for something within ICI. And we actually made a massive, massive difference commercially to ICI, Akzo Nobel. And it became, it is now, and has been for probably the last 10 years. It really is the cornerstone of the Dulux business in the UK. So like from a time and effort perspective, and in getting a big corporation to invest money, that to date, I think that's the best investment.
As a CEO, are you always focused on the big picture, or do you like to be involved with more of the day-to-day operations?
To think that I'm big picture, and I am. My natural piece I like doing is looking much further out. But I can't help myself. I started at the bottom of organisations. I'm always in the day to day, and if you ask some of my team, I'm sure I know it. Well, you don't have to ask them. I know I drive them mad, but I think you have to get that balance where you've got to be in the day to day at times, because otherwise you lose touch with the organisation. So, whether it's this company or the other job, much bigger job. Much more people and bigger turnover, then you're still in the factories and you're still talking to people, because that's where you understand what's really going on.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to build a career in the manufacturing industry, especially around automotive refinishing products?
If you want to work in a manufacturing business or any business, whatever you want to end up in, so if you want to end up in marketing, when you're in that organisation or through your career, do other roles around it. So if you want to end up the marketing director of any company, go into sales, go into logistics for a bit, go into manufacturing, and if you've got the right relationship and you've with the senior team in that business, or your boss or whoever it might be. Someone did it with me. I was a guy who ran shops, I ran supermarkets, and then I became supply chain director. It was the best role I ever had because it made me understand the business end to end.
What makes someone's CV really stand out in your eyes? Because I know you've mentioned previously that someone's personality is a big deciding factor for you when considering their application. But is there anything else you'd ask our job seekers to avoid doing, or something that they can take on board when writing their CV in future?
So there are CVs that just switch you off because there's not enough effort in them. They're kind of like a token gesture. Here you go, and it's kind of a list of qualifications. It's tick the CV box, but that's it. So I think there are CVs that genuinely switch you off, and then I think there are CVs where people have taken, not only have they kind of answered the job description within their CV, and I think having one CV isn't the answer. It's having a core to your CV that you can tailor to different roles. And that's something I learned as I went through my career. And then I think there's a piece where you try and bring your personality out, whether that's in a personal statement or the experiences that you might not think are important. But if you've done, I don't know, got Duke of Edinburgh's, if you've done a charity climb on, in the Himalayas or in the Alps, or you've done a big cycle ride or something that says, well, actually, or volunteering, whatever it might be, something that says there's something a bit different about this person.
Has UPOL been affected by the coronavirus at all?
I think there's been some pluses and minuses in coronavirus, so it's definitely affected us. We managed to keep all our factories and distribution centres working, and I genuinely thank all the people who made that happen. Most of the commercial roles were either mothballed or they worked from home because there was no one to talk to. My primary concern, and I think I said it before, was just making sure in the here and now people are safe and they feel secure, that they're not going to lose their job, that they're not going to get their pay cut. We paid everyone 100%. I think then there's a piece where you go, but you've got to balance that with the long term. So you've got to make sure you're managing your cash and all those things. I think the big change for us is technology. It really is. For someone who spent most of the last 15 years on an aeroplane flying somewhere around the world, you couldn't have done this. You couldn't have had the change in behaviour a year ago. Even if you'd wanted to, you couldn't have spoken to customers in America or France or wherever they might be, and both parties think it's acceptable to do it all by Zoom or Teams. I think what you've got now for someone like me particularly is you can have more balance, and I think you'll see that balance going forward.
Have you made any short-term or long-term changes within your company following the coronavirus outbreak?
I think short-term, we've put a lot of all the COVID measures in. We definitely managed our business for cash, so that we knew we had plenty of cash to get us through this, which is a different, from a business perspective, it's very different managing to cash to managing to your P&L. We did that really early on. I think if you asked all our people, our big priority was making them feel secure. And then what we have done kind of short term and long term is we're opening new offices in Wellingborough, which is where our factory is, just to make sure that we can get the social distancing right. It's something we've wanted to do for a while, but never quite faced into it. And actually, we've needed new offices probably for the last 2 years. So they will open in October, so we can get all the social distancing right and have an office that's fit for growth for the future.
Thank you very much for your time today, Guy. I really enjoyed this interview with you. Just before you go, I'd just like to ask you if you have a saying or a motto that describes your approach to business.
I have a saying: you can't have a bad day. When you go to work, especially in a leadership role, you can't have a bad day, because it just ricochets across the organisation. So if you can go to work and do your best and make every day a good day, that has a really positive impact. It doesn't matter if you're the boss or wherever you are in the organisation, go to work and have a good day, because it will make the person next to you have a good day.
Thank you for joining me today for this How You Made It video. We will be doing some more of these soon, so keep a lookout. If you want to check out any of our previous videos, then you can go to our YouTube channel or visit the info hub on our website. Visit Zoek UK to start your job search.